Today, we're going to learn to write and... what am I saying? The next step, once you understand the video on subject, verb, object, is to use subject, verb, object in a real situation. And that, for you, is going to be a journal. There's many reasons why. So, one, you need to write a short journal daily. So that can be 3 or more sentences. Also, we're going to use when and where in this journal, and this is going to help you with your tenses. So let's see. Why do we write a journal? One, we can record our thoughts for the future. So you can look back and see how you were feeling, what you were thinking, what you did well, and what mistakes you made. Number 2, you're going to get fast or quick at creating clear English. So this writing journal time and these few sentences you write are giving you practice. If you remember, you're taking your ideas and turning them into subject, action, verb, object. All right? The man saw the table, whatever it is. That's super important for your English. You need that in anything you do in English: speaking, listening, reading, writing, university, school, friends, travel, you name it. Everything requires this process. Okay. Next, your writing will help your speaking. So when you practice this process, this SVO process in your writing, you have time to think, okay, who is the subject? What is the subject doing? And to what? You have time, but when you speak, you don't have time. So a lot of people want to get better at speaking, so they practice speaking. But the problem is you're practicing under a pressured situation, and in that situation, you don't do this slowly. What you tend to do is go back to your language, whatever that is. We call it L1, language 1. And then you go, oh, okay, I know how to say this in my language. How do I say it in English? And it actually ends up taking you longer, and it cuts your confidence because you're making mistakes and you're slow. Whereas if you write first in your journal every day, you're going through this process of, this is how native speakers speak English. You're going through this process many, many, many times as you write your journal and you tell your story. And you will get faster. And then when you speak, this process of making this SVO will be faster, and you will speak faster, more clearly, more accurately, and people will understand you. And you will have more time to think about your pronunciation. Okay, so this is a really important step. This practice every night or every morning. Do a journal. So your writing will help your speaking. All right, and number 4 is most of your journal is going to be in the past tense. And let's see that, in the past tense. So you will learn to use correct forms of the verbs in the past. When you're speaking to somebody face to face, you don't have as much time to practice turning this verb into the past tense. So get to got, for example. You don't have much time to do this. And often you forget and just say get instead of got. But in your journal, it's slow. Nobody's rushing you. You can just go to here and go, okay, I need who is the subject? What is he doing? What's that verb? Oh, it's get. Oh, but it's past tense, right? Okay, so I need to change to got. Okay, the man got the table. The man found the table, right? You can, oh, the man find. No, the man found the table. So it's giving you that time to create that awareness that you are in the past tense and you need to change that verb. So there's another trick for you to do this. And in your journal, there's 3 tips, and the third one is the trick to get you into the past tense. So let's just see what the journal is first and what you should do. So number 1 is tell a real story. Why should you tell a real story? Now, when you hear story, you think about a fairy tale, you think about a movie, you think about a book, a novel. But as a matter of fact, about 60% of English is telling stories. Why? We'll get to part 3 soon, and we're going to use this tip and I'll show you this, but 60% of your speaking English is going to be telling stories because, let's take a look. Number 1, what happens in real life when you really have to learn and speak English? Let's say you're traveling and you arrive late to your hotel. And the owner said, or your Airbnb, right? The owner said you have to be here by 10 p.m. and you get there at 11 p.m. What is the owner going to say? Why are you late? What do you have to do? You have to tell a real story of what happened so that you can explain to the owner why you're late. Work, same thing. You have to write a report. And section 4 is very bad. There's no information. And the boss says, why is section 4 missing information? You, to save your job, need to explain to the boss why that information is missing. That is called telling a real story. Maybe your coworker didn't do the work, whatever it is, but it's a story and it's in the past tense. And there's many other situations. If you're meeting a friend and you were supposed to bring some tea and you didn't bring the tea, your friend will ask you why, and again, you need to tell the real story. So, a journal is telling a real story, which will lead you to be able to tell these stories in English face-to-face quickly. When you do it in your journal, you have time, you can go slowly, and then you will get faster and faster as you write your journal more. And then in real life, you will start to be able to explain your story the same way you did in the journal, but in speaking, and it will be much quicker. And you will be better at it, because when you're practicing this journal and telling your daily stories, you're finding ways of explaining yourself, and you get better at doing that. And the better you get at it, the better you can explain these real stories, okay? So that's super important. And alongside why we tell stories is the practice when you tell these stories of putting it in the past tense, okay? Because you need to change your verb into the past tense. So it's going to be subject, verb in the past tense, object, right? So you start very simply and very clearly. Now, remember, a little tip on the side here is in your language, maybe you can have 1 or 2 or 3 ideas in one sentence. And we can do that in English too, but the bigger your sentence in your own language, the harder it's going to be to turn it into correct English. So I will suggest very strongly that you stick to the one idea in the SVO. And later I will show you how to put these one idea plus one idea, how to put them together and how to organize them is going to be another lesson. All right, so this also in your journal is you practicing thinking of what the subject is. Because when you have that, let's say one of these situations, and you have that picture in your mind, you're not only going to have one, like the example in the last video. That's very, very simple. You're going to have other people, you're going to have other things, and time, and the weather. You have all these kind of things going on, and many people doing many things. So in here, there's like idea 1, idea 2, idea 3, idea 4, 5, and you have to think about these ideas one at a time and be very fast at choosing that subject. Okay, where do I start? Which one is it? Now, I will do a video on this to help you organize those ideas and show you how we do that in English. But that's the reason why you're practicing thinking of the subject when you do your journal, okay? And finally, there we get back to starting with when and where. Let's take a look at when and where and why this is so important. Now, this is something that we do naturally in English anyway. And it's going to be really helpful for you because you will be able to express what's happening very clearly and quickly. So, how does this when and where work? Well, firstly, when you're telling a story, maybe to your boss, about your report, you're going to say, he's going to ask you where the report is or why the report isn't good, right? And you're going to say, yesterday, in the cafe, Joe told me something, right? So this is what we call a framework. This is when, and this is where. Why do you need this? Remember, English isn't about studying grammar. English is about communication, right? Your job is for your boss to have the picture from your mind through your words go as clearly as you can into the boss's mind. Yep, same picture. Because if it's a different picture, your boss misunderstood you, and he will say, oh, or she will say, I thought you said right? And you're like, oh, no, I said this. And he's like, well, I didn't understand you. And whose fault is that? Maybe it's his fault, but you lost because he's the boss, right? So your job is to be very, very clear. Super, super, super clear. So short sentences with SVO are okay. Your job is to be clear and understood. And good communication, that's what your boss wants. Your boss doesn't want Shakespeare. Your boss doesn't want Dickens, whatever, fancy English. No, it's not the point. Good communication is always clear, okay? So when you tell that story, you start off your story with when and where, because that is a context, we call it. We know when it's happening, we know where it's happening, okay? So when you practice in your journal, let's make a little list of things you need to think about. So your journal is what? Number 1, real. Number 2, past tense. Number 3, when and where. And here you got to watch your verb. And what else is it? I think the real is like various topics, right? So you really need to get good at those various situations, depending, are you going to travel? Are you going to work? Are you going to university? The English is slightly different, right? We can talk about that later. But this is basically what you need to do. And also remember to do it daily. Very, very, very important to express your idea or story daily, so you can get that SVO very clear and your boss can go, okay, I got it, I understand you, or your wife or your kids or your travel friend or whoever it is. All right, so that is your journal. That is your work. You can put your journal in the comments, you can ask questions in the comments, and anything you need, let me know.